The first Mad Max film doesn't take place in the post-apocalypse, which is odd because this is by far the most famous post-apocalyptic franchise. In the near future, civilization is slowly collapsing. A group of police called the Main Force Patrol, or MFP, patrol the edges of a crumbling society. The film starts with a chase, as it should. A cop killer, calling himself the Knight Rider, is fleeing from the MFP, taking out several officers and civilians. But then Max Rockatansky joins the fray. From the very beginning, Max is set apart from the others. He gives the guy he's chasing a complete mental breakdown. The Knight Rider gets taken out, but he is a member of a motorcycle gang led by a man named Toe Cutter. They arrive and want revenge. Toe Cutter is charismatic, and his gang are a bunch of oddballs. They dress in flamboyant costumes and go by nicknames. The fall of civilization has driven them crazy, or they've decided to take advantage of a lawless world. Even as they run wild and commit all of these acts of violence, they have a philosophy and a set of beliefs that are hinted at. How much of this is psychological cope? How much of it is an excuse to misbehave? They would form the prototype for Lord Humongous and his raiders in the sequel. Hints of things to come, both in fiction and perhaps in real life. If you don't believe me, just look up the Ugandan Civil War. There's a lot of good world building in this film. Simple signs and the behavior of the MFP members at the start of the movie set the stage. Certain harsh things, like the attitude of the cop that Max and his wife go to after they're attacked, reinforce this. George Miller and Byron Kennedy worked in an ER helping car crash victims. This is shown with the focus on injuries and wrecks. This film was partially inspired by the oil crisis that happened a few years prior. Making it about a failing civilization helped keep the budget low. A handful of people like Goose and Max stand for something, and the light is fading fast. As everything goes to shit, good men suffer and die. In the case of Max, all of the insanity and death starts to drive him insane. The head of the MFP pushes for Max to be a hero because he believes that it is needed. The concept of resurrecting the idea of a hero carries over to the rest of the franchise, with Max becoming a legend to the Wasteland survivors, someone that they can look up to. Even in this film, which does feel a bit detached from the others, things would be picked up and used in later movies in the franchise. The actor that plays Toe Cutter would go on to play Immortan Joe. The old woman with the shotgun is pretty badass, and she might be the inspiration for the Vuvolini in Fury Road. Goose is a self-actualized, happy-go-lucky character that lives in a world on the verge of collapse. I find this interesting. He clearly understands what is going on. He's a bit of a hothead who wants to bypass the corrupt courts to bring criminals to justice, but at the same time, he loves life, making what happens to him even more tragic. As with a few other big name movies of the time, it would be the sequel that would really propel the franchise into the spotlight. It wouldn't be until the sequel, The Road Warrior, that Max would get his signature look and his signature attitude. This would be the version that people know and love, so everything in Mad Max is a build up to that. The film does have its flaws. There's some sped up footage that looks silly, like something out of the Munsters. Max's wife just happens to run into the gang rather than it being a targeted attack as revenge for killing the Knight Rider. This could be interpreted as being destiny, as this was when he was about to quit his job. It brings him back into things. For some reason, Max and his wife are downright careless with their toddler. They let him play with a revolver. I don't think he'd be able to set it off. Maybe it was unloaded. But of course, every unloaded gun should always be treated as if it's loaded. I cannot imagine letting a child of that age be outside unattended. Was this kind of thing normal back then? What if a dingo kidnapped him? For me, the budget only really shows in the fact that a lot of the supposed cop cars require a lot of suspension of disbelief. This is a revenge film with much of it being build up. In order for the protagonist to get revenge, they need to have motivation, and so it can drag a bit in the middle. It is also about slowly driving Max crazy, which of course necessitates a lot of time. The dilemma of a man torn between his job and his family is pretty standard. It feels a bit stale. Civilization in decline, society collapsing, the authorities unable to prevent it, their corruption and incompetence only making things worse, violence a part of everyday life as criminals run rampant. As an American living in the year 2026, I can very much relate to all of this. A fuel crisis is predicted. Things just seem to be getting worse and worse. In the near future, Max Rockatansky might end up being everyone's literally me character.